On today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we are ranking and tiering the top 45 running backs in fantasy football for the 2024 season. I'm your host, Sean Moran, and I am joined by my co-hosts, good friends, and fellow knowers of ball, Aiden Holler and Keegan Thompson. Boys, we're officially 5 Sundays away from the NFL season kicking off. How are we doing, Keegan?
We're also a week away from our live draft together, our yearly live draft. What is this, year 10, year 9?
Yeah.
Roughly
I think
10. Yeah,
might be close to 10.
The numbers. Yeah.
It snuck up on me really fast. I feel like I've just been doing best ball drafts, so I'm glad we're getting into some redraft rankings, busting out some players into tiers. Maybe help me out and finally win this league for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, we are. We're having a fun, more of a low key draft than we normally have. 2 years ago, we flew out to Cabo, which was an outrageous draft. That's going to go down in the Hall of Fame. That was a great one. Aiden, how you doing, man? 5 weeks until you see Caleb Williams.
I'm good, man. We the Bears are 1-0. We're the only team that can say that. We are 1-0. Hard Knocks was cool. I think Hard Knocks is never all that good these years, but it's just a taste of football. So
man,
that was
Rex
nice.
Ryan, Jets, Hard Knocks was fantastic.
That was
the good stuff.
No, man, I'm feeling good though. I'm excited to see Caleb on Saturday. Sounds like he's going to play about a quarter versus Buffalo. So
that'll be exciting.
Slinging the rock from the new threads.
No big news on the Bay Area sports front over here, so we could just skip past that.
Not
that
yet.
Argument.
Yeah, Pretty Ricky might go down in insider history, though. It's just a dog in his NFL cap versus the world right now.
Nothing to see here.
Before we jump into rankings, 2 quick things. If you are new to the Regression to the Mean podcast and you love fantasy football, make sure you like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notifications to make sure you aren't missing any of the content that we are dropping this summer to give you an edge in fantasy drafts. And 2, if you love fantasy football and you want to compete for a chance at $1.5 million, you need to be drafting on Underdog this summer. If you download the app and sign up using promo code RTM, the good people over at Underdog will double your deposit up to $100. Drafting on Underdog is my personal favorite way to get prepped and ready for my home leagues, while also allowing me to compete in a ton of different contests for big cash prizes. All right, guys, the format for today's episode is simple. I've ranked the top 45 running backs for the 2024 season. I've broken them into 9 tiers. Keegan, our resident Gen Z expert, is going to pull up the tier maker. Looks like he's already built it out too, which is great.
Let's go.
So we'll have this ready to go throughout the episode. And we're going to go tier by tier, and we're going to call out guys that we think are targeting or fading at costs. Aiden and Keegan have also done this exercise, and they're going to tell me how insane it is for how high I have Devon, Achane. But boys, you ready to go? You guys ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it, brother.
Okay.
Great tiers, Keegan. This is awesome.
This is great.
Thanks.
We're going to start off with the first tier here. I think it's pretty simple, in my opinion. I think it's 2 guys. I think it's CMC, Christian McCaffrey, and I also have Breece Hall in this tier. This is my elite workhorse tier. I don't think these guys really have many challengers to touches. They're going to play all 3 downs. They're going to see a ton of passes. They're going to see a ton of touchdowns. They're going to break off explosives. They're going to play on potentially 2 good teams. I don't really think there's anything to argue here. My call out is Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall could easily end this season as the RB1. He reminds me a little bit of year 3 Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook tore his ACL, recovered, and then went bananas in his 3rd year in the NFL. And I think Breece Hall profiles pretty similarly to Dalvin. But do you have any qualms with this tier? I think this is pretty straightforward, right?
I've got one.
Okay. Okay.
I've got Bijan in here.
Okay.
These are my 3 picks to be RB1. I know you tend to think there's going to be more of a committee than we think with Tyler Algier. I tend to think the opposite. I think Raheem Morris has been singing praises about Bijan all summer. So in my opinion, I've got the top 3 guys. So I've got Bijan at 3. I'm not moving him past either one of those. But I've got him jumping Gibbs and joining that. What I look at is the 3 RB1 potentials of this fantasy season.
Yeah, I'm almost in lockstep with Aiden there, where Bijan would be my 3, and I feel like he's the other running back you could draft in the first round. Yeah. Now, home leagues and redraft leagues are very different than what we've been doing all summer with best ball. There will maybe be 4 or 5 running backs drafted in the first round, just how redraft ADP is.
People are running backs.
Yeah. But I think Bijan, Breece, and Christian McCaffrey can all be first-round running backs in my mind.
All right, we'll touch Bijan here in a second. We'll go on to the second tier here. This is my year 2 superstars in timeshares. I have my RB3 Jahmyr Gibbs.
Year 2.
Of course, year 2. This is a big tier for me. I have my RB4 Bijan Robinson, and I have my RB5 Devon Achane. Okay, so I'll start with Bijan here. So Gibbs was just flat out better in basically every single statistic than Bijan last year. Plays in a better team, better offense, better offensive line. We know his role is going to expand upon what he had last year. Sure, David Montgomery's pesky and he's a good player, but I just think Gibbs is going to make that year 2 leap. And when he was given that 1A or that one role when Montgomery was out, the guy was averaging like 26 fantasy points per game. So like if anything happens to David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a weekly top 2, top 3 play based off of what he showed last year. And I think he left a lot of meat on the bone as a receiver. He dropped so many passes wrong, bad routes. Like his routes ended up in like 2 pick sixes, like with Jared Goff. They were like out of sync. It was kind of weird. He was billed as this incredible receiving back. He didn't necessarily show that in year 2, but he was an amazing rusher. My take with Bijan Robinson is why did Tyler Algier get so much run last year? Like, because Tyler Algier is good.
We know the answer to that.
He's good. He was a better goal line rusher. But it's also the thing about Arthur is he pounded Derrick Henry into the ground, giving him 400 carries a year. It's like I find it bizarre that Bijan Robinson didn't carve out a bigger role than he did last year. And I think Tyler Algier is a really good player. Keegan can attest to this. I think Tyler Algier is like, he's the president of the Algier fan club. Like Algier's a good running back.
Yes.
And I don't think he's going away anytime soon. Like I really don't. Like he's very comparable in his skill set to David Montgomery. So I think they're way more similar than people are willing to admit. And I could be wrong. I won't have take lock on this if it's week 2 and Bijan has 80% snap share. And it's like, okay, I was wrong. Hand up. That's on me. But until I know that, I just have to make the assumption that he's probably going to be more of a timeshare than people are willing to admit at this point. And I'm not even going
I think we're also like
speak.
splitting hairs here to talk about timeshare. Like he's still going to be like, I mean, we're talking about him a top 5 running back this year, right? Like timeshare or not, regardless with like Algier's involvement.
Like, I know what you mean with Algier still being included. I think my biggest scene is like how much better Atlanta's offense has to be like to improve, or like Detroit's offense, you're not really going up from there. You know, top 5 scoring offense last year. Atlanta, on the other hand, was the 26th scoring offense last year. You know, like it's going to be night and day, I think, what they're rolling out this year. So I think like Gibbs probably carves out a slightly larger role, especially if anything happens to Monty, like goes nuclear. But I think the fact that Bijan, you know, they pretty much match each other point for point. I think it was 1 point or 2 points in PPR scoring.
Bijan outscored him by 2 or 3 fantasy points and played in 2 less games. So, yeah, you're right. I think we're splitting hairs. I think in terms of growth, though, Gibbs grows in the passing game. And then for Bijan, it's just more touch share if I were going to see it. And I do think Bijan will see more touch share. I just do worry about Tyler Algier goal line vultures. I just do. But we'll see. Maybe rational coaching prevails. Maybe rational coaching prevails. But I think, again, my big flag plant in this tier is Achane. I just think he's a superstar in the making. And I think the way that Mike McDaniel schemes it up with his skill set and his ability to grow in terms of touch share gives him one of the biggest and best ceilings in all of fantasy football. And at the end of the day, for my tiers and my rankings, it goes down to, would I draft this guy over the other guy? And I would draft Achane over Taylor and Barkley. That's where I'm at. Not everyone's going to be willing to take that risk, but I'm going to go on the side of upside wins championships. And I think Achane has just an upside that is astronomical. And I'll get more into it when we talk about our running back targets in the next episode. But I'm all in on Achane. I've got to move him up if I want to get him. This is where I got him. So that's my reasoning. I get if some people don't have him that high, though.
Keegan, where do you got these guys? I've got some expanded tiers in terms of this.
Yeah, I like we said, I think Bijan should probably be the 3rd running back here. And honestly, I think people who want to draft Bijan or Breece Hall probably have a right to do so. Aiden's right. There's a lot of room for growth with what Bijan can do. Like unlocking him as a receiving back as well, too, is something that I'm looking forward to in Atlanta this year. Gibbs and Achane, to me, are similar in like their ability to explode in a single game and like quite literally carry you to a win. My only concern with Devon Achane is like they don't need him to get that many touches to be effective. I think we saw that last year. his efficiency metrics are insane. I don't think they'll be that insane, but it's very clear to me that he could just have some blow up spots and score a lot of points or put them in a position to score points. Now that could be both good and bad for him. Like he could just be so efficient that maybe they're getting to the red zone, other people scoring, but it's splitting hairs here. I think Taylor and probably Barkley belong in a similar tier to me just because like Taylor's role is very unchallenged. And I know there's the worry of Anthony Richardson taking on some touches, like especially in the goal line or goal to go situations.
He will.
But I think Taylor's so unchallenged.
For sure.
He will vault.
Yeah, definitely.
Some.
I just think like his workload is going to be astronomical, and like we're not that far removed from him having like a monster season on the ground. So I don't know. Saquon, Taylor, Achane, Gibbs to me could all be in the same tier, and then Bijan like a tier up. That's kind of how I see these guys. And I don't really have an order for them. I think Achane and Gibbs offer you something that like maybe Taylor and Barkley don't at this point, like with such high explosive outcomes in fantasy that maybe you want to push them up. I'm fine with that, but I think you could draft them all in similar ranges and be pretty happy about it.
Man, you guys are really projecting on Bijan. Did we watch the same player? Like I love Bijan.
Did you watch the same team? That's the question though. Like you have
Gibbs
to like throw some
better.
of that stuff out of the window though.
But
the other thing is
was
Gibbs
better.
has a
Yeah,
but none of these people in this list here that you have had a running back who also rushed for 1,000 yards last year on the same team who's returning to the team.
Yeah, but
like David Montgomery wasn't bad last year.
No, David Montgomery was great. But again, Bijan just got subbed out at the goal line. Like he wasn't the goal line.
Yeah,
back.
but he
Gibbs
had a donkey for a coach.
Look, Arthur Smith is an excellent run game guy. So I don't. It's hard. Like you're projecting when you say Bijan's in the same tier as Breece Hall, in my opinion. Like we've seen Breece do it. Breece is the truth. Like without a doubt, we have not seen Bijan do it.
Yeah,
so
but
I find it hard to put Bijan Robinson in the same tier as Christian McCaffrey. Like that seems blasphemous, in my opinion. Like Breece belongs in that tier because Breece is.
Achane, though.
Well,
we're same with Achane.
Yeah.
We're putting Achane. Well, Achane scored 192 fantasy points in 11 games last year. He almost scored as many fantasy points in Bijan Robinson in 6 less games. So, like, I get it. Bijan is this profile, and he's an excellent player, and he's a good pick. But, like, I think we're projecting with Bijan just as much as we're projecting with the other guys based off of what we saw in year one. So that's my only take with him. That's my only take.
That's what this exercise is all about.
Yeah, baby.
What do you think they're going to do? That is quite literally exactly what we're doing this year is projecting what they're going to do this year. And it's like year 2 guys are going to get better. And I think Bijan has the most room for growth. So
okay.
I'm pretty much with Keegan, though. I've got Bijan up in 1, and then I've got those other 4 guys in a tier together. So kind of top 3, next 4, and then kind of into the next tiers is kind of how I had mine to start.
And then tier 3, I got JT and Saquon. I think they're just great workhorses. They both have rushing quarterbacks who probably won't check it down to them a ton, and they both could be vultured by the QBs at the goal line, but they're going to look really good. They're going to have good efficiency. They're going to be really good. They're great picks. I think Saquon and
I think they both
JT
have double-digit touchdowns this year. Like, no problem.
Well, they're going to have to if they're going 6 and 7 off the board. Their ADP is 5 and 4, so they're going to have to score 10 touchdowns to pay off at that ADP.
I really like those picks right there.
They're good picks.
I know
10 touchdowns seems pretty in the realm. Especially like they both catch passes too. They're each going to have at least 1, 2, 3 in the air, another half dozen plus on the ground. I feel pretty good about those.
I love this next tier.
Yeah, the tier 4 is I have it labeled as workhorses on the rise. These are younger guys that necessarily haven't had the JT or Saquon type season yet. And maybe they haven't necessarily exploded efficiency wise, but I have Isiah Pacheco as my RB8. I've got Kyren Williams as my RB9, and I've got Etienne as my RB10. I have them pushed down because I moved up Achane so high. But Pacheco, I have up 2 spots. Pacheco is a very interesting target, but I think all 3 of these guys offer a ton of potential. I think Kyren has some major question marks. Pacheco feels really safe. And then Etienne, I feel like people are kind of forgetting how good Etienne was before he kind of wore down at the end of last year. I worry that the Jags are hell-bent on getting another running back in the mix, but maybe they should because he wore down. But man, All three of these guys are great picks, in my opinion.
I think it's good if Tank Bigsby actually shows some life and gets involved. Like Etienne could use a break. I really want him to be healthy throughout the season and have like a full year where he doesn't wear down. I feel like people, like you said, do forget just how good he is as a running back. And like after he got over the foot stuff, like, man, Etienne is a special dude. And
good player.
I'm not worried about Tank Bigsby coming in and like taking over the backfield because he's just like this insane running back either, which makes Etienne feel really safe. Like all I'm asking for Bigsby is to like come in, play his role, give Etienne some reps off. But Etienne is still going to be like their red zone back. He's going to be like the main back they go to and 2-minute drill. Like he is such a special running back. And I feel like this is a really good discount, especially if you want to push the running back position down. All three of these guys could be a great first running back to draft. You know, if you want to build out the wide receivers, like this is the sweet spot for running backs, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty into this tier too. Like Etienne, like you said, is, you know, just been quietly like really good in his NFL career, you know, back-to-back 1,000 yards, very involved in the passing game, relatively cheap when you look at kind of where he is here around RB10. I would probably put him and Pacheco ahead of Kyren personally. I've got serious doubts about Kyren Williams for various reasons that we'll get into, but I think this tier as a whole makes sense. Like I would have trouble dipping into this next tier and taking any of them ahead of these guys, aside from it's a hard case to make. Like, you know, like the vision is here for what we think these three guys are going to be versus, you know, these next 5 or 6.
Yeah. And again, before the YouTube comments come for you, Kyren, Aiden, they got you last time with Kyren when you sold him in Dynasty. They got you good
I'll do it again.
Moving on to the next tier here. This is my tier 5. I have him labeled as most likely workhorses, but could be in a slight committee. I have my RB11 Derrick Henry, RB12 Josh Jacobs, RB13 Joe Mixon, RB14 James Cook, RB15 Alvin Kamara, RB16 James Conner. So you've got mostly veterans here, and then James Cook, who is kind of a tough one. It's kind of tough to, what do I do with James Cook a little bit? But this tier is really solid too. If you went like elite wide receiver and then you snapped up Joe Mixon or James Conner, like you're probably going to be pretty safe at running back. I don't know if I love them being my RB1, but you definitely could. In particular, I really like James Conner. He's last year was like arguably the 3rd best running back in the NFL. I think the unquestioned workhorse, even though they drafted Trey Benson, age and injury concerns are definitely there, but man, he's such a solid, high risk, high reward option for fantasy managers. And I think that Cardinals offense can be much improved. And I will not be defeated by James Conner in the playoffs this year. I'm just going to refuse to have it happen. So I'm going to try and get him on as many teams as possible before he buries me. And then another guy who's not sexy is Joe Mixon. Like he arguably goes from one of the best RB situations in fantasy to arguably one of the best RB situations in fantasy. I just think he's going to have like the same role that he had with the Bengals. So I think both those guys are pretty solid. Anything else here? Like Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, these big names, Alvin Kamara. Do you guys have any thoughts on this tier of kind of these veterans?
There's a couple in here that I really like at cost, like one specifically being Josh Jacobs. Yeah. I think I've been Coach Speak pilled by the Coach Speak Index Twitter, just like highlighting how LaFleur is talking about Josh Jacobs and not only what he can do. Like he's like, you know, he's got the full tool set. He could be a 3-down back and like talking about how he wants to get him the ball in the receiving game as well too. And look, AJ Dillon was getting, you know, goal to go situations and like close yardage situations, but like, is that a LaFleur coaching philosophy thing, or is it because Aaron Jones is smaller? Like, there's a lot to like kind of divulge into there with like their previous usage, but I just don't think LaFleur's had a running back quite like Josh Jacobs in the past couple of years, and I think I'm not really threatened by AJ Dillon. And Marshawn Lloyd is extremely exciting and great when he has the ball in his hands, but his problem is holding the ball in his hands and actually keeping that ball with him. So I think Josh Jacobs could step into a very sizable role here in an offense that's probably going to be very good. And then the other one in this tier that I think most interested to see how it plays out is Derrick Henry. I'm hesitant to understand, you know, how much I want to draft him personally in redraft, because I'm typically a Lamar guy and I might have Lamar on most of my teams anyways. But I'm very interested to see how that goes. It's going to be his best team. in a long time. The offensive line is going to be really strong. I think he's going to get some really good opportunities in a high scoring offense to score again in the red zone. I'm curious to see if the age cliff is real. He's kind of defied that, but I think those are the two running backs I'm most interested in seeing from this tier. The other ones are kind of just like show up to like your construction job with a lunch pail and like do your work, get the job done. There's nothing too exciting about some of these. James Cook maybe has the most variance in this tier, but very excited to see Henry and Josh Jacobs seasons.
There you go. Yeah, I've got two guys here that I really like. Derrick Henry being one of them too. I'm super high on him, just given where his ADP is. I think he walks into a dozen touchdowns. Like I think it's gonna be relatively easy there. Probably another 1,000-yard season from him. I think he's just in an awesome place in terms of like the rushing offense. Like they were top 5 in pretty much every single metric. It helps that Lamar is helping pad some of those stats in the rushing categories, but like they're going to run the shit out of the ball. He's going to get a ton of red zone touches. So
they are.
Henry, James Cook in this category. So really like James Cook, not a lot going on offense aside from him and Josh Allen. And then lastly, I would pull up one guy into this tier, and that'd be Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
I know he's had some injury concerns. I know Sharp is looming, but there's been some really good buzz around him. And in terms of like game-breaking talent, like we have seen it from him in terms of those monster runs, being able to really have big games. So I think Kenneth Walker belongs in this, most likely the workhorse, but slight committee category. Like I still think he probably still edges Sharp, at least 60-40. He absolutely should from a talent perspective. Like he is a significantly more talented running back than Sharp, but I'm really interested to see how that shakes out. I would pull him in behind Connor to round out this tier.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker, and we can move on to the next tier. I've got RB17, Rachaad White, 18, Kenneth Walker, 19, David Montgomery, 20, Najee Harris, 21, Jaylen Warren, 22, Aaron Jones, 23, DeAndre Swift, 24, Jonathan Brooks. Kenneth Walker is a really interesting call out. Very explosive player. He's being talked up as a 3-down running back by the coaching staff. He's had some injury issues in back-to-back seasons. He's got Charbonnet lurking in the backfield to siphon off touches. But, I mean, his ceiling is really high. Like, he's a top 12 ceiling talent for sure. This offense could be on the upswing with Ryan Grubb at the OC. There's some O-line concerns, but, Walker is boom or bust. He can probably do well even with kind of poor blocking. But it's hard. It's hard to move him up. Like, put him in the same tier
as a mess.
As Alvin Kamara.
Scares me.
Like, Kamara's going to see like 18 touches per game. He might not be good, but he's just going to see so many touches, especially as a PPR back.
He's a PPR merchant, bro. He's a PPR merchant.
And I think Rachaad White could be in that tier too, but man, like
so
his efficiency stats are terrible, but he hit home last year on sheer volume. Like, we all like Bucky Irving, but do we really think this diminutive running back is going to eat into Rachaad White's snap share, considering Rachaad White's such a beast in pass pro? Like, their O-line should be better. I don't know. Like, Rachaad White he's my guy. I just don't know.
It's a hard one.
It's
He's
tough.
And
you got the Steelers guys in this.
Like, without Dave Canales,
Yeah. And you got the Steeler guys. I don't know really what to do with them. One of these guys is going to be a home run, or Arthur Smith makes it super frustrating, and they're both just RB2s all year. But like these two guys are really good picks, Warren and Harris. But curious to know your guys' thoughts on this tier.
This is another tier I'm actually a big fan of. If you want to scoop up some running back value, like I'm totally okay with both Steelers running backs. Like, who's to say they won't just have like 1,000 yards each, right? Like, who knows? What are they going to do? Like, establish the pass this year? Definitely not with Arthur Smith. I think David Montgomery, of course, is like one of the safest running backs you can pick. Like, until I see otherwise, I'm always going to be comfortable with like David Montgomery on my redraft roster.
Yeah,
Aiden talks about it a lot with how good the Lions offense was last year when we were discussing Gibbs. There's not really a reason for them to see a downtick in offensive production. So pretty happy with that. I love Kenneth Walker. And most interesting one in this range is definitely Aaron Jones. When he was healthy last year, he was really good again. I still think Aaron Jones is such a good running back. The way he's able to navigate the pass game as well, too, just like being such a good pass catcher, and his ability to, earn some yards after contact despite his size, like, makes him really intriguing for a quarterback room that has veteran Sam Darnold, who is kind of shaky and could rely on some checkdowns, but then there will also be a rookie quarterback potentially playing JJ McCarthy, which could also mean some extra checkdowns. I think Aaron Jones has some serious potential to not maybe exceed this tier, but like maybe be one of the safest running backs you can draft and redraft this year. I think their offense has a lot of weapons, but it's still condensed, and he's going to be part of that funnel.
The talent's there,
Yeah,
for sure. The talent's for sure there for Jones.
He's still really good.
The injuries, the age. I mean, he's still got some money this year, so like I just would rather take the other guys ahead of him. But yeah, Jones is a good RB2 fantasy this year.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
The next tier of guys I got here is the ambiguous backfield tier. You're going to see a lot of the same backfields in this tier. RB25, Brian Robinson. RB26, Tyjae Spears. 27, Tony Pollard. 28, Rhamondre Stevenson. 29, Chase Brown. 30, Zach Moss. 31, Austin Ekeler. 32, Raheem Mostert. I pushed Brian Robinson, Tyjae Spears, and Chase Brown way up the board versus ADP. And I'm down on Rhamondre and Raheem Mostert. I mean, I have to be down on Mostert if I'm so high on Achane. Like, that's just kind of how this is going to have to work. It wouldn't make sense.
Board breaks. Yeah, that would be math.
These backfields are going to be super important, in my opinion. Like, Cliff has called a good run game in the NFL. He got a lot out of James Conner. I think was he the OC when Kenyon Drake went off? Like, they've had guys be good in his scheme. And even though they did sign Austin Ekeler, and Austin Ekeler does look healthy in camp, I'm still a big believer in Brian Robinson. And then Tyjae and Tony are like 1A, 1A. Like they're both listed as the starters. They're both interchangeable. They have similar skill sets. I think we're going to see a lot of them. And then Chase Brown and Zach Moss. That could be a really important one. Mean team that like could win fantasy championships. Like Chase Brown could be this year's James Cook. Or he could just be a nothing burger. So like
he could just be a screen merchant.
Yeah. I mean, this tier is really important. I think you're going to see.
I'm just not in. Can I be honest? Are we in the trust tree?
Hit it.
Are we in the trust tree, main team?
Yeah.
I'm just not in on Chase Brown.
I like Zach Moss.
It's just
I like Zach
thing.
Moss.
It's just a vibe thing.
I'm a big fan of Zach Moss, and I think the reports of Chase Brown being 1A in camp are like kind of false. Like nobody in the Bengals like side has said that. Even the Bengals coaching staff came out this week and they were talking about how well Zach Moss has done in the receiving game in camp and like how much they're looking to like lean on him. Like, I just don't buy that Chase Brown, who had like 4 explosive plays off screens and like 1 broken play, is going to come in and be the lead back for what's supposed to be a very good Cincinnati Bengals offense when Zach Moss was pretty freaking good last year. And he's been good in spurts, like bigger back too. Like when we get down to the red zone, is it really going to be Chase Brown or is it going to be Zach Moss rushing for touchdowns? You know, I think there's so much to consider there. I just think the offseason hype for Chase Brown has gotten way out of hand.
Easier too, so I'll allow it. But yes, I think Zach Moss is someone that coaches are going to play, right? Zach Moss is someone that coaches like playing. We saw this even when JT came back. They were like, we're still going to give Zach Moss the rock. I think
almost ruined his negotiations.
It's hard, man. I think both are good picks. Whoever breaks out in that running back room, I think could potentially really win some leagues. Like it could be a skeleton key.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good offense.
And then Rhamondre,
Tennessee one too.
Yeah, the Tennessee one is. I think they're
still believe in Tony Pollard. I still believe in Tony Pollard. Full year removed from the injury.
Yeah,
really not all that old. He's 27. Like he's not 30. Like he's a little older for running back standards, but man, he's still just a year removed from an absolutely awesome season. So
I'd say draft them both, and you could be fine.
You guys want to hear a dirty little secret? The Sims really like Tony Pollard. The Sims are in on Pollard. They're like 13, 14 PPR points per game. That's his like median projection. And I'm like, what?
That plays.
So
he's good in the passing game. He's good rusher. Like if the Tennessee offense is good, like a lot of these guys could be. If that offense is really bad and they're just just passing from behind all game, like could not be great. But
I can't believe we're 30 minutes into the episode and we just got the first mention of Sims.
we will sim heavy hard on the targets and baits for sure.
Sean's been good. Yeah, Sean's been good.
I think I like tier 7 more than tier 6. I think I'd rather wait and take a swing on ambiguity because I think there could be major hits and breakouts in this tier.
I agree. I totally agree.
All right, we're going to do the next tiers pretty quickly here. But tier 8, I've got lead backs in bad offenses for the most part, or just running back by committee. I got Devon Singletary, RB33, Javonte, RB34, Gus Edwards, RB35. I've got Jahmyr White way down, RB36, Ezekiel Elliott, RB37. I'm up on Rico Dowdle, RB38, and then Jerome Ford, RB39.
Go.
Whoever emerges from this backfield for the Cowboys is going to be a home run. I have no idea who it's going to be.
Rico. It's got to be Rico, dude.
I think it's got to be Rico, too.
You think it would. And I think he might be one of the best picks in fantasy this year because I don't think this offense is going to run the ball a ton, but you definitely want the lead back in this offense. They're going to run a shit ton of plays. They're going to score a shit ton of points. You want it. So I really like Dowdle in this range, if I'm being honest.
Yep. Dowdle and Jerome Ford.
I
still don't really get why Jerome Ford. So Nick Chubb's not coming back. I don't care where they keep feeding us. I'm not believing it.
I don't care about the squat videos. Don't care about the weight.
No, I don't
see him cut on a field.
Don't give a shit. Jerome Ford was awesome last year. I love him in all formats. He's all over my best ball teams. He's such a cheap running back to take later on in redraft. So no, those are my two guys I would call out here. Don't really care for Gus Edwards. I won't touch Javonte Williams.
I am heartbroken to see Javonte Williams so low. Like as a truther of Javonte Williams, like this hurts to see him so low. And honestly, I'll personally back. We don't know that. We're all assuming that. Like everybody's assuming that Jaleel McLaughlin's almost worse than Chase Brown, but with a little bit more production.
Like it's estimated too.
It's a
but we don't know that. We actually don't know that.
I think it's gonna.
Doesn't
Peyton
like
loves
Javonte
committees.
Is my thing. He doesn't like Javonte.
Javonte's the best running back on the roster. That feels so silly to me. Maybe this is why I'm not an NFL coach, but just like Audric Estime and fucking Jaleel McLaughlin taking over for Javonte Williams when he's another year removed from the injury seems so stupid to me.
They won't take over.
I don't mind him being so low because their team's gonna beat ass this year.
Yes, these are bad offenses for the most part for this tier. Like I like Javonte. If you told me he keeps a 3-down roll for the most part that he had at the end of last year, I'd move him up. But I think Estime is going to be annoying. I think McLaughlin's going to have a clear role and he's going to be good in PPR for the most part. So like, I just feel like they're going to continue to rotate guys in, and based off the fact that this offense isn't very good, it's a little bit of a speculative pick, but I think this offense is going to get so many checkdowns. I think they're going to check down so much to these running backs because I don't necessarily really believe in the QB talent for this team, especially down the field. So I think these running backs could see a ton of checkdowns and targets.
Yeah. Before we're on to this last tier real quick, underrated guy I think in this tier is Devon Singletary. Like there's two people that I will float the idea of drafting from the New York Giants, and it's Malik Neighbors and Devon Singletary. I was shocked. I was actually watching shout out the underdog team, but I was watching a video earlier, and Hayden brought up the point that when Dable and first came to the New York Giants, they were like 20th in EPA per play. Like that's pretty fucking impressive considering they were playing with Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton and like rookie Danny Dimes. Like there's some meat on the bone to improve there in New York, and I think you put in the notes here, Sean, pretty accurate. He won't win you leagues, won't cost you, but Devon Singletary is going to be, I think, a valuable fantasy asset to scoop up in late rounds.
If you take a dice roll on John Brooks, right, you're going to need Devon Singletary in the wings. If you take Jimbo Cook, okay, I can't believe they called James Cook Jimbo Cook. That was honestly one of the best moments of the offseason. But yeah, if you take a guy who's like could have injuries or you're like worried about, Devon Singletary is like a really safe guy just to throw on your team. Some people are going to probably overdraft him because they're going to project volume, which scares me. But if you have him at that RB33 range, which I have him net neutral versus ADP, I don't have him higher or lower. If he stays in that range, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, I think that's a good call out, Keegan. Last tier, backup running backs in good offenses that could have base roles. RB40, Zach Charbonnet. RB41, Chuba Hubbard. 42, Ty Chandler. 43, Nick Chubb. 44, Blake Corum. 45, Trey Benson. 46, J.K. Dobbins. I think the guy that could potentially win leagues in this range is Blake Corum. something happens to Kyren, this guy's going to go off. He's going to get so much volume. So that's like my big call out in this tier. For you guys, who's one guy that really stands out in this last tier?
The one I want to believe in, it's a long shot, but is J.K. Dobbins.
Okay.
Super murky backfield. If he is somehow healthy in that offense, could lead that team in touches. Like, it's him, Vidal, and Gus. Like, there's no real alpha there right now. We've seen J.K. Dobbins do it at the NFL level, like keeps snapping all of his ligaments. But like, he's been good before he does all that. So that's one I like. And then Corbin's good call out. I'm low on Kyren, so I
think the only one in this range that I'd even entertain is Chuba Hubbard, just because I'm pretty low on Jonathan Brooks coming off the injury. I think Miles Sanders is somewhat dust at this point of his career, and Chuba's good when he gets the opportunity, and he will get 4 weeks of really good, consistent play and opportunity to like kind of establish his role. And I think people assume like, 4-week break, Jonathan Brooks is going to be right into play week 5, but like they're going to slow roll him. He's going to be on snap count. Like, it's going to be like 6, 7, maybe 8 weeks before he's back to a full workload capacity. So that's a lot of time to be getting a really late running back having some starting touches. So
if you draft John Brooks, you're going to have to stay patient. Like, you're drafting him for the fantasy playoffs. So you're going to have to hold tight on Brooks, because it's going to be like 10 weeks before he really makes an impact.
He's going to be in your eye. He's
going to be in your eye, or you're just not playing him until because he's going to be one of those guys where it's going to be week 5 and we're talking about running back rankings, and it's like John Brooks, he's up to 38% snap share. He's up to 52%. You know what I mean? It's just going to be one of those guys where each week we'll update you with touch share, snap share, but it's going to take a while, I think, for Brooks, from what I can tell, from what Canales' quotes are. But that's the tiers. I'm super high on Achane. That's my takeaway. That's
he hates Bijan, and he's really high on Achane.
I don't hate Bijan. He is a year 2, so I will never fade a year 2. And I love Bijan coming out of college. I just put him in the same tier as CMC and Breece Hall, man. Whew, that's hollowed company in my opinion. But I get it. Bijan's talent and ceiling are tantalizing. But that's going to do it for the RB tiers. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're dropping more content with our running back targets and fades later in the week. Make sure to stay tuned for that. Until next time.